Welcome to this video where I'm going to be talking about something that I just found on the ChatGPT documentation, which I thought was very, very interesting, and it will definitely help people increase the level of their output. So yes, I do spend time reading ChatGPT documentation just for fun. And when I'm talking about ChatGPT, I'm talking about ChatGPT here or also the playground. And basically what I found was this: GPT best practices. This guide shares strategies and tactics for getting better results from GPTs. The methods described here can sometimes be deployed in combination for greater effect. We encourage experimentation to find the best methods that work for you. Some of the examples demonstrated here currently only work with our most capable model, GPT-4. If you don't have access to GPT-4, consider joining the waitlist. In general, if you find that a model fails at a task and a more capable model is available, it's often worth trying again with the more capable model. Okay, so basically they have an entire section here that says 6 strategies for getting better results. And I thought these were really, really interesting, so I thought we could talk a little bit about each one. So the first one, tactic: include details in your query to get more relevant answers. This is probably the one that most people know about, but we'll give it a quick read anyway. In order to get highly relevant response, make sure that requests provide any important details or context. Otherwise, you are leaving it up to the model to guess what you mean. This is what people don't understand. A lot of people, they just go on ChatGPT and they say something like, write me an article about black attire. And then they just hit enter and they copy and paste this directly onto Google, and they think that it's going to rank on Google when it's definitely not. There is a huge difference between saying, just writing rank on Google for me, and then using something like this instead, which is my own personal prompt, which I use to write content. So obviously, if it's a 10-page prompt, you're giving enough information for ChatGPT to understand the context without having to draw from its own knowledge. And that's the important distinction here. The second that you are relying on ChatGPT to draw on its own knowledge, you are risking that it's going to do something called hallucination. Hallucination is where it just makes something up to fill in the gaps of its knowledge. So what I do instead is I give it all of the knowledge it needs. And let me show you how this works exactly. This is how I do it. So I say, this is my prompt: this is all of my current pages on the website, collections, and blog posts. Using this information, I want you to write me an article. You should write in Markdown formatting with a clickable title, meta title at the start. Internal links, which should be naturally included in the article. Unordered lists, ordered lists, block quotes, and any other HTML/Markdown formatting. You can think to include. Use as many collections as possible. My website is isuits.it. We are a multi-brand store selling these brands. This is the important part. The article topic is men's fashion 2023. Write with creativity and burstiness like a human. This is the important part, because it's like I'm giving it 2 parts of context. I'm giving it the focus keyword, but then the rest of the context comes from these links. Now, ChatGPT can recognize what these are because the links are so well written. So shoes, leather, suede. This is obviously a page that has leather suede shoes on it. And ChatGPT knows that just like you know that. Okay, so this is where the huge distinction between writing an article or doing anything with ChatGPT without context and with context. The more context, the more information, the more detail that you put in your initial prompt, the better the output is. That's also incredibly true with programming, coding, and other important parts of ChatGPT. So let's have a look at their examples. Worse, how do I add numbers in Excel? Obviously, if you say that, it will just say write the numbers, right? How do I add up a row of dollar amounts in Excel? I want to do this automatically for a whole sheet of rows with all the totals ending up in the right column, called total. The difference between these two is night and day. Who's president? First of all, it probably won't know. Let's actually check that. Who's president? They probably won't even know which. So it says Joe Biden, but I could be talking about literally any country in the world. So that's a really interesting point as well. Who was the president of Mexico in 2021? Write code to calculate the Fibonacci sequence. Write a TypeScript function to efficiently calculate the Fibonacci sequence. Comment the code liberally to explain what each piece does and why it's written that way. It's really, really important to use comments. If you don't know about coding, I highly recommend making sure that you tell it to use comments. Summarize the meeting notes. Summarize the meeting notes in a single paragraph. Then write a markdown list of the speakers and each of their key points. Finally, list the steps or action items suggested by the speakers, if any. So yeah, that's basically garbage in, garbage out, which is what people talk about when they talk about how to prompt ChatGPT. The second one is something that often people forget, which is to assign a persona to ChatGPT. This seems really, really useless when you start using ChatGPT. You just think to yourself, why can it not just, if I say to it, write an article about black tie attire, so write an article about black tie attire, like I just did before. Again, it just does this. But if I stop generating and I say, you are a digital marketing SEO professional with good knowledge of all on-page ranking factors. Can you write me an article about black tie attire for men? Press enter. Okay, so after a fair amount of testing, even if you just say to it that you are a SEO specialist, you know everything about SEO, etc., the only real way to get it to use a certain type of formatting is to tell them to use that formatting. So although giving it a role is important, it's more important that you make sure that you're getting the exact output that you want. However, there is still a big difference in the quality of output if you give it a persona versus if you do not give it a persona. In one of my recent videos, I talked about stun spot prompting. This is one of his prompts. You can find his Discord in the description, and this is a free prompt. And this is the best way to give personas to ChatGPT. So this gives it the persona of Sparkle, the content generation specialist. But even if I say here, write an article about black tie attire for men and press enter, it still doesn't give the correct formatting. So there is two parts of this, I would say. There is the part of giving it the persona, but there's also the part of telling it what type of formatting to use. This isn't specific for SEO. There are other things that this will be specific to. Okay, the third point, and probably the one that I didn't really know about, and the one that's the most important, I would say, is to use delimiters, I don't know how to say that word, to clearly indicate distinct parts of the input. This is actually a big game changer because this is how to properly ensure that ChatGPT will understand what is what within the prompt, okay? So summarize the text delimited by triple quotes with a haiku, and then you put the thing here. What people often do is they just write like, summarize this content, and then they control V, and they don't do any kind of delimitation, which means that ChatGPT may not fully understand what part of the prompt is to be used for what part of the output. So this is really, really important. You'll be provided with a pair of articles delimited with XML tags about the same topic. First, summarize the arguments of each article, then indicate which of them makes a better argument and explain why. So this is actually really, really important, and this is a change that I will make to my mega prompt. So what I will probably have to do here is I'll do something like internal links, and then go all the way to the bottom and close with internal links. What this will do, I'm hoping, is it'll actually improve ChatGPT's understanding of what these are and how to use them within the article. Because right now, although it does a fairly good job of using the internal links, it kind of does mess up, and it does a couple of weird things, and it does start inventing internal links as well. So I'm going to change this prompt a little bit. I'm going to say, let's take it from the best practices thing here. So I'll say, you will be provided with a list of internal links. Please spread about 10 to 15 internal links evenly throughout the article. Okay, I believe that will give better output right there. And the last one here is the classic one that most people already use, but the important thing is the colon here. This is how they delimitate in this case. So make sure that you're doing one of these three. Either you're putting it in triple quotes, the extra information that ChatGPT needs for the completion, or put it in XML like this one, or put abstract and then a colon. I personally think I'm going to start using the XML tags just because I think this is going to give the best results. So this is a really interesting one here. Specify the steps required to complete a task. This is particularly important with programming, with coding. If you don't know, I very recently released a free Python script, which basically what it does, it basically takes a CSV file and turns it into a blog post, which automatically posts to WordPress. The way that I did that was I gave it the steps that it needed to complete the task. It then gave me a quick summary of the task and how it would do it. And then I started to just keep building and building and building until it was fully ready. It needs to know the steps. You cannot just say something like, create me a script that takes keywords and posts a blog post to WordPress. It probably will not give me something that will do all of the steps that I personally need it to complete. Yeah, so for example, there's no OpenAI here. This is just completely useless. Like the difference between this and what I actually got is insane. And the reason is because I gave it the steps that it needed to complete the task. If you are trying to code with ChatGPT especially, it needs each step to understand the overall task. So let's see what the examples they give here. System, use the following step-by-step instructions to respond to user inputs. Step 1, the user will provide you with text in triple quotes. Summarize this text in one sentence with a prefix that says summary. Step 2, translate the summary from step 1 into Spanish with a prefix that says translation. Okay, that's interesting. The reason that they've done it this way is because otherwise the translation would be wrong. I believe that's why they've done it. So yeah, make sure that you provide the steps so ChatGPT can understand exactly what you want. Let's go here. Provide examples. This can be a little bit more difficult, but especially when memory is a little bit easier to work with, this will be so important because we can store our articles as memory and use them as examples. So providing general instructions that apply to all examples is generally more efficient than demonstrating all permutations of a task by example. But in some cases, providing examples may be easier. For example, if you intend for the model to copy a particular style, this is important, of responding to user queries, which is difficult to describe explicitly. This is known as few-shot prompting. So this could also be, you could reword this to, if you intend for the model to copy a particular style of writing in order to extend your writing ability using ChatGPT, basically. Because one of the things that's really, really hard to do, although you can use ChatGPT to do this, it's really hard to put a tone on your own writing. Like if you read some of my early iSuit articles, it's really, really hard to say what the tone is. So instead, what I can do is I can load up ChatGPT with examples, although this isn't quite there yet because memory for me is still extremely difficult with ChatGPT. The final one here is specify the desired length of output, although I personally don't believe that this works particularly well with ChatGPT, but you can ask the model to produce outputs that are of a given target length. The targeted output length can be specified in terms of the count of words, sentences, paragraphs, bullet points, etc. Note, however, that instructing the model to generate a specific number of words does not work with high precision. The model can reliably generate outputs with a specific number of paragraphs or bullet points. That's really interesting. So most people, when they're trying to write ChatGPT SEO content, what they actually end up doing is they say, write 1,200 words. But that actually doesn't work. They admit it themselves. Anyone that's used ChatGPT knows that it doesn't work. However, it can produce a specific number of paragraphs, which is actually a huge game-changing thing for us. Because if we say, give me a 30 paragraph response, it will give a 30 graph paragraph response, apparently. So let's quickly put this to the test. Write me 30 paragraphs about black tie attire for men. Let's see if this actually works. I'll be very, very curious. Okay, so I said write 30 paragraphs split into an article. This is just using ChatGPT 3.5. This is just a very, very quick example. What I would want here is, this is almost amazing, but what I want is, can you add a paragraph under each heading so it's not just one big list? Okay, there we go, perfect. So this is how, this is actually really, really interesting. I'm really glad that I made this video now, just because there's one specific thing. It's best to use paragraph count instead of word count. That is super important for us SEOs. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope this helps, and I'll see you very, very soon with some more content. Peace out.